They do not have to rush Caitlyn being on the Olympic team.
Yep. Stephen A., I could actually argue that it hurts the game more if they had given her a roster spot over someone more deserving.
So go ahead and argue it.
That's exactly what I'm saying, because I think it makes a mockery of the women's game. If the focus on, now we just have to have people because of marketing and their intention, and they're not as talented, and we're not putting the best team out there.
Shut your bitch ass up before I get to talking shit about you.
Now it's crickets.
No one denied the fact that she's a star and she couldn't play. It was just that it takes.
Y'all were denying it, Molly. Don't do that.
And there's
don't do that, Molly.
Shannon, what are you saying? People didn't think that Caitlyn Clark was talented? That's exactly what I'm saying, because I think it makes a mockery of the women's game. If the focus on, now we just have to have people because of marketing and their intention, and they're not as talented, and we're not putting the best team out there.
I went in the locker room trying to show him love. He dissed me. He threw shade at me. I'm like, what the fuck I do?
You ready, B?
You feel me? Like, if you played, he played half the clip. His little minions over here trashing me and shit. I'm like, oh, whatever. I'm trying to
cruising down the west side.
Nigga, who the fuck are you? Like, who are you?
The 03 Bonnie and Clyde.
He's talking about you right now. The locker room. He said all the players are trash.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Andrea Carter made her return to First Take to discuss Caitlyn Clark and the WNBA playoffs. Now, this was a funny segment to me because, you know, we've been looking for Andrea Carter and, you know, Monica McNutt ever since, you know, they got into it with Stephen A. Smith a while back. We haven't seen Monica McNutt back on the show, I don't believe, since. So Andrea Carter came on the show today. And what was funny is that, you know, she didn't even acknowledge Shannon Sharpe or Stephen A. Smith. She only acknowledged Molly Qerim, and Stephen A. Smith called her out on that.
No, I don't know if you noticed, she said hi to Molly. She didn't tell us hello, how are you? She said nothing to me.
Well, that was my
just Molly.
Really?
I mean, we just here. We just
teed you straight into seeing
It's all right. It's all right. No. It's okay. It's all right. I got it.
Now, Shannon Sharpe, ladies and gentlemen, he was not about to let Andrea Carter off the hook, because if you guys remember, she was against Caitlyn Clark making the Olympic team just a few months ago. Now that Caitlyn Clark has won Rookie of the Year, Shannon Sharpe came with the receipts.
Stephen A., I would be remiss if I didn't say this. A lot of this noise came by people that were sitting on this network. They tried to minimize her, said, well, you giving her all this credit. What about the women that came before her? What the women came before her, what they did cannot be taken away. That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlyn Clark. But there was a lot of people tried to make sure they keep Caitlyn Clark in her place, because what you're doing, if you give her all this shine, you minimize what they done. You can't minimize what Maya Moore or Candace Parker or Lisa Leslie or Lauren Jackson or Diana Taurasi or Simone Augustus or any of the other great players. That Caitlyn Clark, what she's doing doesn't minimize what they've done, but we should have been giving her the credit. We saw the ratings, we saw the merchandise sales, we saw the attendance, but y'all want to make it about something else. Oh, what about the women that laid the foundation? What about this? What about it? That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlyn Clark. Caitlyn Clark is box office. She's doing this. And instead of giving her credit, y'all tried to make it about, oh, y'all poo-pooing the old guard. Y'all never talked about the old guard like this. Nah, I ain't gonna let it slide. Caitlyn Clark, unanimous Rookie of the Year. But what's even more impressive, she's first team WNBA. First.
I hear you, right? I hear you 100%. But another level of noise was coming from people. You were one of them who also tried to create a picture around Caitlyn that the league was against her based on the actions of less than 5 former players or current players, which also creates a lot of noise. Like we saw during the All-Star game, the league and the players in this league like Caitlyn. They enjoy Caitlyn. They had so much fun with Caitlyn. So there was noise created from every single
was pointing the finger directly at you, because
no, not me.
I'll come to your defense about that. But let me also make this a point. You're not entirely accurate with what you just said, because guess what? Whether it was Shannon, whether it was myself, we didn't paint a picture of the entire league. What we said was there was noise out there emanating from some, and those folks were very, very loud. and conspicuous with their dissent towards things involving Caitlyn Clark. When we pointed that out, we said why? What was the necessity for it? Because a rising tide lifts all boats. This woman is box office. Plus, she can play. And the combination of the two would ultimately give all of those wonderful ladies for the wonderful work that they had done over so many years. It would have been validated, even though it came through the conduit was her. Ultimately, it stood to benefit the collective whole. And rather than some out there accepting and embracing that, they resented it, and they tried to use the contributions of others who came before Caitlyn Clark to justify their vitriol, instead of owning the fact that what really was their objective and what really was their agenda is that they resented the fact that this young lady who came into the league, took it by storm, and drew in a level of attention that they weren't able to draw. That was the reality.
One thing I want to say before we go to break, really quick, Dre. I think one of the impetuses, especially for this conversation, was obviously her not getting an Olympic roster spot, right? Remember, we had a big debate over that. Was she deserving of it? Was it more the marketing, the hype? And here's what I'll say, and I know, Andrea, that you agree. At that point, some of us felt like maybe she hadn't proved it in the WNBA, but at this point, she certainly has. So she proved everybody wrong.
What about the guards? Let's talk about the guards that did make it. Talk about the guards that did make it. How they play, Andrea? Because you were one of the ones that say she didn't earn it. How did the guards play that within the Olympics? How did they play?
For sure, but we can't take how Caitlyn finished the W season and pivot that to how she would have done in the Olympics. That's a completely different argument.
All I'm saying is look at that point. Look at how she played up until that point. Chelsea Gray had only played one game before she went to the Olympics. She was outplaying Diana Taurasi. Was she outplaying Diana Taurasi at that point in time that she was on the team? It's a simple yes or a simple no.
Was Caitlyn outplaying Diana Taurasi? But you can't just factor in current play, Shannon. That's all I'm saying. You got to factor in. If you're factoring in Diana Taurasi's Olympic experience, Diana Taurasi's how she was with the team.
Shannon, hold on one second.
This ain't a lifetime an Olympic lifetime achievement.
Shannon Sharpe, hold on one second. What we're saying is you guys were right. That's what we're saying. You
no,
were right.
Molly, you did not say that, Molly. No,
that is what you said.
That's not what you said, Molly.
That
is not what you said.
I literally just brought it up.
You were talking about folks making the point that, at the time that they had picked the Olympic team, Caitlyn Clark didn't necessarily deserve it based on her play on the court. When the point that Shannon and I was making at the time was that, wait a minute, in the end, there are people that have ended up on Team USA for reasons other than just their elite play at that particular moment in time.
She was a marketing whiz. Right. And she was everyone right, because she is a marketing whiz and she did it on the court. That's what I'm saying.
Molly.
So you were ahead of the curve.
You're not listening. Molly, you're not listening. I'm talking about your point, Molly. Your point.
And I'm explaining it to you.
At the end of the day, we were making the point, do you want to promote the league or not? And people like Andrea and others were resistant to that playing a role in somebody making the roster for Team USA. And we were saying, hell with that. You want to promote the sport. You put that girl up in there. And people were appalled at that notion. That was the subject.
But Stephen A., this is just going to come from different perspectives, because you all's initial point was a marketing point, and that was what I was arguing with. That was what I was arguing with, the marketing point for Caitlyn. What Molly is trying to say, and what I agree with, is now that we have seen how Caitlyn finished this season, there is a good basketball argument for her being on the team, for her making the team. There is now a great basketball argument. But listen, no, Shannon, listen. How she's playing right now, you just said it 5 minutes ago, was a testament to the rest that she had and the break that she had. We don't know how she would have played without that break. So we're saying Caitlyn has now proven herself basketball-wise, but you all weren't making a basketball argument. You weren't making a basketball argument.
We're not saying we were making a basketball
argument. Andrea, I'm not going to let you do that.
Go ahead,
Andrea, I'm not going to let you make it seem like Caitlyn Clark was averaging 5 points a game. At the time, she was still averaging 16 points a game, which was more than a lot of other guards that made the team. So don't do that. Don't make it seem like she was averaging 5 points and this was like a handout.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you guys just heard Andrea Carter and Molly Qerim get absolutely cooked in this entire debate. Shannon Sharpe and Stephen A. Smith's whole point this entire time was, number one, the girl was obviously good enough to make the Olympic roster. She was outplaying some of the guards prior to the Olympics, and she finished, the WNBA season first team, all WNBA, right? So the whole notion that she wasn't good enough, like Molly stated, she wasn't talented enough, it was all bullshit, right? She was definitely good enough to make the Olympic roster. And to Stephen A. Smith's and Shannon Sharpe's point, you girls have been complaining about the lack of coverage, the lack of money that has been made throughout you guys' career. And now you have a girl in Caitlyn Clark who has come in and who has, raised the level of interest within the entire sport. And you guys don't want to put her on the biggest stage, which is the Olympics. Well, that's a little bit idiotic. I don't know why Andrea and Molly are even trying to argue that. I mean, that makes perfect and logical sense to me, but Molly, she's always getting cooked. I've told her on numerous occasions to just stop involving yourself in these debates, because you end up sounding like a complete clown, most of the time. But ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got on this particular topic. You guys come into the comment section and let me know what you thought about this exchange, and I will catch you guys on the next one. This was another installment of The Locker Room. Peace.